Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Showboys, my brand new podcast that brings you a glittery, gritty, full frontal glimpse into the world of Boylesque. What is Boylesque? We're going to find out. Some people think of Boylesque as simply being male striptease, but my goal with this pod is to go beyond mere definitions of gender and performance and get deep, real deep. And who better to achieve said depth with than with my very first guest to the pod. This person has been performing in New York City since 1988 and around the world since 1993. He's a pioneer in the 1990s burlesque renaissance who won the first ever Mr. Exotic World King of Boylesque title at the Burlesque Hall of Fame in Las Vegas in 2006. He has won numerous Golden Pastie Awards. I just saw them, in fact, displayed in his beautiful burlesque room, including Most Likely to Get Shut Down by the Law and Most Unpredictable Performer. He was called Fantastically Watchable Naughty Satyr by the Scotsman and the Taboo-Defying Dynamo by Next Magazine. And his act was banned in Rome. I don't know how you top that. He's performed all over Europe, Australia, North America, and South America. Please welcome to the stage the Godfather of Neo-Boylesque, Tigger!
Yay! Yeah. Hi, Chris. Hi.
Studio applause. I know we're acting like there's a giant studio audience over here, but it's all the lovely bric-a-brac, but I'm here for it. Hi, Tigger.
Hi.
Thank you so much for being on this podcast.
My pleasure.
I've said this before, this podcast, it's all about the world of Boylesque, its current and past performers, its history and influences, and the vast spectrum of identities and aesthetics that make this performance what it is. There's going to be plenty of people who don't know what Boylesque is. Also, I love that I'm already assuming that there's a giant built-in audience, but I'm sure there's going to be plenty of people who don't know what it is that are listening. And I'm just wondering, would you privy us to your own personal definition of what Boylesque is to you?
Lesque.
Hitting it hard from the very beginning.
Yeah. I guess I would start with my personal definition for burlesque, which is sex plus humor plus self-expression performed. Mm-hmm. That's enough. I don't really like more definitions than that because I love how wildly open-ended it is. Mm-hmm. I started doing this stuff a long time ago. I've been doing stripping for over 30 years, thanks to Penny Arcade, my drag mother and mentor. And before that, I had a reputation as the naked actor of downtown theater in New York. So I was pretty much already doing it. My first word as a baby was go-go. Was
it really?
I was born in the 60s, so yeah. I guess my sister had go-go boots, and if I was wet, hungry, tired, go-go, go-go. So it was pretty much, my fate was sealed. Anyway, when I started doing this stuff, so I was already stripping for Penny in a theatrical context, and I just, coming with my theater degree and everything, kept wanting to tell stories when I'm performing. So that would lead to transformation in the look while I'm performing, and that became strip routines. And I had plenty of girlfriends who were strippers and loved them. And I had a vague awareness of burlesque as that thing from Gypsy. And of course, I know and love Gypsy because I'm a human being.
Right.
But I didn't get that I was doing that. Sure. Those were, broads from long ago, and the pictures, everything I knew of Tempest Storm and Blaze Star was glamorous, and there were just so many things that were different.
Yeah.
I didn't get that I was doing that. So I called what I was doing strip performance art. And back then there was Blue Angel Exotic Cabaret.
Yeah.
So exotic dancing. And Penny called what I was doing with Bitch Dyke Fag Hag Whore for years exotic dancing. But burlesque wasn't really, that was an old-timey word and no one was using it. Mm-hmm. And the first time Selena Vixen came around, who knew me through Penny Arcade and saw me doing these strip routines like Father McTigger and Gender Surrender with the Sinner's Sideshow on Avenue A in the back of a bar, she wanted to put together Red Vixen Burlesque. Uh-huh. Obviously playing on Blue Angel, Red Vixen, but she called it burlesque instead of exotic. I was like, oh, burlesque. Oh, I like that. No one knows what that means now.
Yeah.
We all have a once upon a time picture, But this, the 90s in New York and bunch of grimy East Village bars where people walk in, they don't even know there's a show, let alone what burlesque is. Yes. And the people that heard that there was burlesque are usually thinking, oh, I'm going to see titties. And then they get all this other stuff. So I thought that perfect, great. We don't really know what it is. And that's where I want to be. Okay. Like, I like that freedom.
Yeah.
So I think sex, humor, self-expression are essential to varying degrees.
Yeah.
Some turn up the volume on one more than the other, but those are essential. And beyond that, whatever, sky's the limit. Surprise me. Blow my mind, change my definition some more.
Right.
Expand it more for me. Please. Yeah, so that's burlesque. And then back then, by chance, it was just a crazy zeitgeist. I started doing this stuff. Center Sideshow was a bunch of circus friends, including Scotty the Blue Bunny, Combustible Kiva, Andrew Hampsis, Jennifer Blowdryer would do performance poetry. They were doing,
Blowdryer?
Yeah, wonderful. The other folks were doing circus, and it was at a bar around the corner from me on Avenue A, and I'm like, oh great, and they're like, Tigger, come do it with us. Yeah. And I'd been touring with Penny, but that was all within a context, and I'd done go-go, so I'd become Tigger, dubbed down the street at Pyramid, but I was like, what do I do? Like, you just ate fire. No one's going to want to hear my Chekhov monologue. What am I going to... And I'm not going to eat fire or light bulbs or all the other things that Jennifer Miller and people were doing. It's like, wow, not me. Yeah. It's like, well, I have discovered throughout my time doing theater that getting naked really pushes people's buttons. Yeah. I kept doing it in plays, and my so-called fellow provocateurs would suddenly be like, whoa, what's going on? Why? And I'm like, changed the scene, didn't it?
Take that, Chekhov.
Yeah. So I thought, okay, so naked theater, naked performance art, strip performance art. Yeah. And by chance, several people had all had similar awakenings from different paths. Yeah. So, there was the world famous Pontani sisters. By the time I was creating Father McTigger, I was also doing a theater piece with a lovely woman who became my sister, number one girl on the planet, Julie Atlas Muse. Within a few months, we were improvising burlesque duets on stage. Dirty Martini found us a year later, and we're all like, who the hell is this superstar? Right. What planet did she land from? Because clearly, like Athena, she was born fully grown. Yes. So there was this amazing group of people. And obviously part of the deal is hype. And how can I hype myself? I am never, ever going to put myself before Dirty or Julie. So it's like, well, look at this. I'm the only one with a penis. So, Boylesque. And I thought I made the word up. I'm wrong. This is pre-Google, in my defense. And there weren't so many encyclopedias, not many coffee table books or dissertations about burlesque back then. And I just wasn't aware of it before, but it's a simple, obvious thing to do. So for me, initially, Boylesque was a hype. It was promo. It was a way to say I was New York's premier Boylesque performer because we didn't see anybody else so easily. I could call myself number one. And then once I finally met others, Rocky Roulette from San Francisco, and then maybe later the same year, Evil Tap Dancing Hate Monkey, now reduced to Evil Hate Monkey.
Evil...
Tap Dancing Hate Monkey? Okay. That's how I first heard the name, yes. He expanded. He has many skills.
Right, yeah.
So, I guess maybe the initial, anyway. Once I started meeting some other people, I was like, oh. And I started thinking about what a movement of men could do.
Sure.
So I had my own reasons for wanting to do it. I'm a nudist and a show-off and an exhibitionist and all that, sure. And I'm an actor, performer all my life, like no question, and a storyteller, all that. But I also have always asked myself, what the hell is male? What's man? What is masculine? What, ew. I from a tiny age, in a different era, I might have spent a while questioning if I was trans because I knew from toddlerhood, like everyone's right away taught boy, girl. And I was like, I can't do this. I can't do this boy thing.
Right.
I never didn't feel like I was in my right body, but I sure felt like what you're telling me a boy is, I can't do this. So I knew I wanted to fuck with that. And that is linked directly to being a feminist. How can you not? When you're oppressed by gender roles, how I don't understand how anyone who is could not be a feminist.
Right.
So I thought I intentionally, one, want to step out of the patriarchy and go into a female art form. And two, I want to make people looking for those strippers be confronted with a man and have a man be an object. And I'm going to ridicule myself, and my penis will be a punchline, and all those things that men never want to see or have happen. I wanted them to be confronted with.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I feel like flipping masculinity or flipping the script on it is always a part of my numbers as well. But also that it that in doing that, it kind of makes other male, especially cis male audience members, like, really, I don't know, have to laugh at their own kind of manhood, right?
Yeah,
physical manhood.
exactly.
And this, patriarchal definition of what them being a man and a male audience member entitles them to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So really, okay, I do take some pleasure that they would initially squirm.
Sure.
But the
of
goal
course.
is eventually they laugh. And it's
Yeah.
like, oh, we've shared a laugh. Look at that. Because odds are on the street, we wouldn't exactly talk together about much. And like, we've shared a laugh. And suddenly you're not so rigid and serious about masculinity. And maybe possibly a couple little questions start pinging in your brain later on that night. That's the goal.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that too, because I feel like I always used to joke that I always try and look for the straight guy in the front row and like just make him like the subject of my, derision for a while. But also it's not just to shame him, right? It's to like, you joke with people, you parody, you burlesque them, and then you invite them to be a part of the show.
Absolutely.
Right? It's like an invitation to the table. But also like, this is what the table is. So you better come prepared to like, eat this meal.
All of this
meal,
and lick
baby.
the motherfucking plate.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, start with confrontation, but move to common ground.
Yeah. Yes.
And that's absolutely, it is not about shame, but I want to confront things and then find stuff. And laughter is often a great way to surprise yourself with common ground. If you've laughed at the same thing, you just made a connection. So anyway, so that's all. This is my very long, circuitous answer. That was all Boylesque to me. And then meeting other men, I was like, oh my gosh, this is important. This could be a movement. And, so much of what burlesque was doing of owning your body and doing away with a lot of personal shame and body oppression and owning yourself and celebrating yourself and your body and sensuality and power and all of those things, to expand that to all definitions. I just felt like burlesque is burlesquing gender. I mean, it might not be obvious, but every woman on that stage, in some way or other, is burlesquing femininity or whatever they're choosing to represent. So I very much wanted to burlesque masculinity, femininity, whatever it is I was doing in that particular role. And a bunch of men doing that. I just feel like we need to explode gender stereotypes and blur lines of gender wherever we can.
Yes, 100%. And I kind of sometimes I feel like, even now as I was getting ready for this podcast, I'm like, Boylesque is burlesque. It is bringing in the sex and the humor and the subversion. And it's how I'm applying it to my body, right? In a way, so I guess, so sometimes I'm like, what's up with this podcast? But also, I do think Boylesque is its thing and is expressed in a variety of ways by a variety of different men, just like burlesque is with a variety of different women and genders.
There's a duality to it. A part of me has always felt like it's a crock of shit in a way. Boylesque is a bullshit distinction.
It's a
because
promo.
Gender is a bullshit distinction.
Yeah.
It's a hype. It's a con. But it is also important because I really need to see all the genders represented at the table. I want to see like complete involvement, and no one should be off the hook, and no one should not be invited.
For the kids at home, going back to your early start, can you tell us a little bit more about Penny Arcade and also that show? And then how did that help you become Tigger?
So I covered Go-Go as a baby, and that I would bust into I'm the baby of the family, and I would bust into my big sister's slumber parties, put on her go-go boots, and dance around for her girlfriends in my diapers, and then whip off my diapers and keep dancing. So again,
love it.
I've always been me.
Yes.
And then going on doing theater all my life, and by the time, even before I moved to New York, but certainly once I was here, I kept finding reasons to get naked. It is always a button that needs pushing.
Yeah.
We're just so puritanical and fucked up in so many ways that it was rare that I was doing a play where I didn't see a place where it's like, oh, naked. This scene naked. And lo and behold, it unlocks something.
So you were just adding, like, you would be cast in a play and then one day be like, I think I'm just gonna...
Sort of. I mean, it was a lot of original works, so there was that. And then people came to know that I do this.
Yeah.
So they'd say, is there anything you would like to contribute to this, whatever.
This period drama.
So we did, sorted shows. And Penny Arcade, I had been to see, and she blew my mind. She is a legend of performance art. Google exists for a reason. If you don't know her, learn her. Yes. And she was really someone who just like fundamentally changed my brain on so many wonderful ways. And she's really accessible. We just started talking after I saw some of her shows. She came to see me in a play called A Carnival Adulteration of Nathaniel Hawthorne's The Scarlet Letter, in which, of course, I was stripped and flogged and hot wax poured on me while a Puritan choir sang about transcendence through sadomasochism. It's there in the novel if you read between the lines.
Yeah, oh, totally.
Sure, I brought it in, but I was just drawing out hidden themes.
Right, you were externalizing the internal.
Exactly.
Yes.
Thank you. So she saw that, and she had gotten to know me a bit, and she's like, well, look, I'm doing my show, Bitch, Dyke, Fag, Hag, Whore, which I knew I saw her do with a couple stripper girls, and I loved it. Yeah, life-changing, really, play. And she's like, I'm bringing it back, and I want to have boys, and I want you to be in it. And she's like, I know you're a trained actor. I want you to act like a stripper. And the only thing that approximates a business plan I've ever had is always say yes to genius.
Yes.
So I did. I'm like, yeah, you betcha. And like I said, that wasn't like it was that much of a stretch.
Right.
So I dove in, and Bitch, Dyke, Fag, Hag, Whore was this amazing Penny Arcade play. I first saw it in 1990. She brought it back in 1992 when I joined it. We played at the Village Gate for a year, and our final show at the Village Gate before it closed down. And if you go by, there's a very old faded sign at Poisson Rouge, which used to be the basement part of the 3-story Village Gate. There's a faded sign that said Jacques Brel, which was in the downstairs space, and Penny Arcade Sex and Censorship, because no one would print Bitch, Dyke, Fag, Hag, Whore. Right. It's there on the sign still, faded, but it's there. Our final show had Marianne Faithfull and Quentin Crisp with us, because Penny opened my world to so many people, and I just met and collaborated with.
And she was a Warhol. I mean, yes. I didn't realize this until I was listening to another podcast that mentioned Penny Arcade. But yeah, she is, I mean, talk about like New York performance art legend, and it has lived through so many iterations of New York.
Oh my God, yeah. And ran away to New York in the 60s as a teenager, raised by drag queens. So, yeah. Yeah. All of that. So, through Penny, we hung out at the Boiler Room with Billy Name, and just wonderful things, meeting Holly Woodlawn, all kinds of fantastic experiences. So she does this amazing show that's about gender and politics and sexuality and personal liberation and our fucked up country and all kinds of things. Sex workers and just everything. It's about everything. And performing that, we would be stripping for 45 minutes as the audience comes in, moves around, pole dancing when I was in my 20s, pole dancing and dancing on the tables or the bar or the go-go boxes or the theater seats, whatever the venue was. We just find places and be in and around and among the audience. For the opening of the show, and at various moments through the show, we would burst out into the crowd and lap dance, table dance, whatever, and bring them up. And there's a dance party where the whole audience is dancing with us on the stage and inhabiting different moments. There's a lovely, beautiful elegy to everyone we lost to AIDS. And anyway, so it was through doing that, acting like a stripper in New York for a year and on the road in Europe and Australia for a year and a half, I just picked up stuff. Like you do, like, there you are on stage, go. And wherever we tour, we would hire local strippers and it'd be like, wow, that's amazing what you do. Okay, well, I can't copy your move, but let me try my own thing.
Oh, that sounds incredible.
So the first time I just did a dive roll into splits and hopped up and landed in splits again and again and again and again, all these strippers were saying, whoa, I've never seen that before. And I was like, really? That's mine. That shit is mine. So, I mean, that whole whatever has been called flying splits, ass attack, whatever, that was just fucking around on stage.
I love that, first of all, because I feel like that's how so many performers find their move, right? Or their set of moves. It's just like literally seeing what sticks. But also, I mean, for all of our viewers at home and all of our listeners right now, if you have not been privileged to see Tigger perform, that is your move. Like when I think of one of the high points of your acts, it's like this incredible feat of strength and flexibility, but it is an ass attack too, because that hole's coming for you, you know? And I'm here for it. The meal is approaching, so
there was just all of that, and picking up and working with strippers around the world and just feeling more and more of a kinship with it. I wanted to be a part of that. And coming back to New York after the tours, I just wanted to find a way to keep some of that looseness and freedom and spirit going. And so I found myself, I used to finish my plays and go to nightclubs to see fabulous acts, but I didn't get that I could be part of that nightlife. I thought, well, I'm an actor, and this is an amazing drag queen, freakazoid, performance arts, whatever, all kinds of things I would see at Pyramid and King Tut's Wawa Hut and these incredible temples of fucked up nightlife performance art that also transformed me. And so I wanted to somehow do something, and I was like, well, I guess I could be a go-go dancer there. So my first night go-go dancing at Pyramid, the drag queen hostess Gloria Hole, who later became Gloria Wholesome. We all change.
Of course, we all have to adapt.
It was like, oh, honey, what's your name? I'll introduce you after the song. And I was like, come back to me. Fortunately, it was a long song. A sympathy for the devil. So I had a little while. And I just thought, I can't name myself. I don't know what it is to look at myself. I don't have to do that. Part of how I can be so free is I'm not looking at me. I'm just putting me out there. I'm expressing. I'm not ingesting. So I was like, what do people call me? Okay, my current boyfriend calls me hooker. Well, that's redundant. I don't need to do that. The one before that, he called me pan. No, I can't call myself a god. Even a freaky goat god, that's just gross. Like, it felt very weird, the presumption of I'm not what people would typically picture when they think of a male stripper. I'm not tall, dark, and handsome. I'm not, a brick wall, a beefcake, all kinds of things. So it's like the sense of humor has to be baked in, because it's hilarious that I'm doing this. And then I remembered the boyfriend before that, Royston. We dated for 7 months in 1991. He used to call me Tigger. So I was like, I'll try that.
Why did he call you Tigger?
I never asked.
Okay.
You know how boyfriends just do. It was just a pet name between us.
Sure.
And he's like, you're Tigger. I was like, oh, okay.
Okay, that's cute.
So I don't know, coloring, energy, something. I never asked.
The collection of Winnie Pooh stories you have.
Yeah, and I just sort of drew on that later, and it sort of took over. So leading to all that, then came the circus friends who wanted me to do something, and I just, like, trying to follow fire, I thought, well, I can get naked.
Yeah.
I've been doing that a lot. And by then I, was also doing live sex shows. And like once you've fucked on stage, getting naked is really, really nothing. Like,
right. Because sex shows, I don't think people realize this. Sex shows, I mean, from my own personal experience, I feel like they either go off phenomenally or they go off abysmally.
Yes.
There's no medium speed for sex shows.
Yes, for sure.
And they're a lot of work too. But anyway, just as a side note. But where were you doing these sex shows at? Or where was this happening around the city? If you don't mind me asking.
No, not at all. Another long story of so there was AIDS. And all kinds of sex clubs and everything were closing down. We're pretty much closed down. The New York I came to in 1988, a lot of the sex clubs that I was able to find out about were gone. Sure. They were legend that had recently closed. Yeah. And if there were ones I would have heard about, there was just this terror all around you because people were dying all around you. It was just hard. So generally, the way back then that I would often meet men is at an ACT UP march, which is kind of awesome. Yeah. That says something about their character right away, which is hard to know at first grope in a sex club. But by 1992, things were picking back up. People were like, no, God damn it, we deserve to have our sex parties. Yeah. We have suffered a lot for the chance to get to do this. And we do not need to follow some bullshit fantasy heterosexual paradigm. Not like heterosexuals don't do this too, but the fantasy version of how they meet. Yeah. Forget that. No, we have a right to have orgies. So people started hosting them. I think I could say that Michael Pickles Wakefield hosted hosted the Cum Spot in his in an apartment on East 9th Street. And so, that was one of the first. And there used to be Wonder Bar in what is now Club Cumming. And before that was Eastern Bloc. Wonder Bar was my first back room at a bar. The area that was the DJ booth and now is that backstage area. That was the back room. Okay. Made so many friends there. Anyway, so Michael would have these parties. And I think QW, a queer weekly, we used to have a lot of periodicals of newspapers of all sorts. And there was also queer rags of all sorts, HX and Next and QW. And they were doing a feature on this return of sex parties. And he asked a few of us that he, had gotten to know from coming to his party if they wanted to come do an orgy for a photographer. And so we did. And, as happens, I was really connecting in every kind of way with one particular guy, and the two of us just kept going after the photographer was done and left, and we were just still fucking, and Michael just kind of hung out and watched, and by the time we were done, he was probably handed us a towel or something or other, and said, would you want to do that? I'm going to be having an anniversary party. Would you want to just do that on stage? And we're like, that again? Yeah. For pay? What? Yeah. Yeah. And, whatever. And on from there. So I've done it at parties at the Center and at the Crew Club in Washington, D.C. and stuff like that. Word gets out when they're like, oh, he fucks on stage.
Something that I do think is unique to Boylesque is that, for me at least, I've always experienced it as this kind of... not conglomeration, but just this, that it pulls from so many forms, including burlesque, but also, the more kind of sex work based go-go dancing, drag, performance art, and that's not to say that burlesque doesn't do that, and certainly that neo-burlesque doesn't do that as well, but yeah, I feel like there's not necessarily a through line to like this, like, I don't know, root form somewhere. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I think it relates to like what I said about it being open to all kinds of people with all kinds of influences.
Yes.
Everyone who jumped in came from, they did come from theater, from dance, from drag, from, anything. Yeah. I mean, it's crazy all the places people come from and then bring that and make burlesque and boylesque richer and more varied by bringing all their weird outside obsessions and skills and all of that.
Well, also, too, and I think it's interesting because, like, when I moved to New York, I, first of all, moved to be like, I was like, I'm going to be Biff in Death of a Salesman. And, a lot of things that theater educations don't teach you is how to make your own work, especially as an actor or, like, a solo performer, right? And that's, one of the things that I treasure so much about burlesque is that it just hands you the keys. And it's like a lot of responsibility, but you just find a way to tell a story and write a narrative that pulls on all the things that we've all been taught or went to school for, or, spent like way too much money on HB Studio for something.
You're the playwright, the director, the costume designer, the choreographer, the cast.
And the producer.
Yeah, you're all of those. Yeah, and it's all on you.
Yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to put that out there. In addition to some of your signature moves, you also have this signature phrase that I think a lot of people associate with you. And some people say merde, some people say pop a pasty before going on stage. You always say fuck him in the heart. And I'm just curious, where does that come from? And also, how does one fuck one in the heart?
It was brought to me by a director whom I love and adore, Tim Maynor. He was the director of many of those early plays in which I kept getting naked, where I got this reputation as the naked actor of downtown New York theater. And he liked to say that, and it was just Tim saying that, but I just loved that as an alternative to break a leg, which seemed a bit violent. Merde, I'm not into shit play. No judgment. If that's your thing,
no judgment.
Great.
Here on the pod,
but that's not, no. I mean, shit happens, God knows, especially with anal sex, but you really try to minimize it.
Yeah, especially on stage.
Yes! For God's sake! Yeah, I'll leave that to G.G. Allen. He's already done that check.
Yes.
No need to return. So there are all kinds of other things that were just more violent. And fuck him in the heart seemed to me not violent, aggressive, and sensual.
Yeah.
And it's in the heart. It's not fucking them in one of the typical orifices. Like, we're aiming for their hearts.
Yeah.
We want to touch them and change them. And we want to do it with some aggression and sexuality.
100%. And also I think too, that's like, that's kind of the gift of burlesque, right? Is that it's, like, I would rather be on a stage the size of the Slipper Room, or like, I want to see the people, like being on huge stages is a privilege and a pleasure, but you don't always get that like immediate reaction. And there's something about being able to like really look at someone and know that they see you.
Yes.
And you see them for seeing you.
Absolutely. And even when you're on those huge stages, then I'm looking at, performing for Burlesque Hall of Fame at the Orleans. Like, I'm running over to stage right and stage left and making sure I get some eye contact with whomever's there and their giant blonde hair or whatever. And, when you go to center, you get to see legends beaming at you. How does that not change you to have, to actually see Tempest Storm and Bic Carrol and Marinka and all these people like smiling at you, or or maybe quietly judging you, and it's like, all right, I see you, I get it, I will rise to that challenge, motherfucker. I love you. Just watch me.
Oh my God. A side note, one of my first years at Burlesque Hall of Fame, you do a ton of volunteer work as well, especially with Burlesque Hall of Fame. And would you call yourself the burlesque escort coordinator? And you paired me with Tempest Storm, which is terrifying. But also, I mean, life-changing. I just, got to be arm candy and sit by her side and occasionally get her a Subway salad, which I will go on record as saying Tempest Storm said her Subway salad, best salad she's ever had. I don't know if she knew.
Why are they not making that commercial?
Right, exactly. I mean, Subway, you missed your chance. Yeah, just sitting by her and watching the fear in people's eyes as they would come up. And she owned that. She knew it, and yeah.
The first time, I am certain the first day I met her would have been at the first time Burlesque Hall of Fame came to Las Vegas, back Miss Exotic World then. Legends Night, I met her during the day. Then I saw her performing that night. And I had no idea, but then the next night when I was competing for the first, Boylesque category, she was one of the judges. I was like, okay, well, here we go, Tempest. This is me.
That's something, and I'm not just saying this to kiss your butt, but that is something I really admire about you, is that you, because I feel like that's something that I need to remind myself of, and all performers should as well, is it's okay to be nervous. It's okay to recognize the stakes, right? But then to embrace it,
Absolutely.
And that's something that I think about too when I hear "fuck 'em in the heart," is to really own the stage, own the space, and then just let happen what happens.
Yeah, so. It's definitely meant to sound kind of a bit dominant and also kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
All of that. It's all of that.
You have said that you want to die on stage. I'm just curious. Years from now.
I have.
Years and years from now. Is there a role that would be suitable for that for you? Or is there just a dream role? It's a two-part question, I guess.
Sure. Well, my major in college, my degree is in theater. But my minor course of study was French. So through the combination in high school as président du club français, and so combining those, obviously, I read a fair amount about Molière, and I read that he died on stage in Le Malade Imaginaire playing a hypochondriac, and he died. I was just like, this is way beyond meta. This is wow. It just made an impact on me. I was like, that's gorgeous. What a way to go. So I know I have said that, but I guarantee I said that before 2010. Because 2010, amazing how often she's coming up in this podcast, is when Tempest Storm fell on stage in performance.
I was there.
Yeah.
I remember that.
And you remember those, it was seconds, but it felt like hours, like a lifetime. There was just all the air was sucked out of the room. Everyone held their breaths and were thinking for that moment before people could spring into action. It was this moment of like, oh shit, did we just watch the most famous burlesque star alive die in front of us? And that was the most horrible feeling.
Yeah.
And there was guilt in it. All the feelings I had watching it, I thought, oh, maybe that was a selfish fantasy. I don't want an audience to feel what I just felt. By the way, Tempest was fine. She was great. They took her to the ambulance. She was not, again, doing her 25-minute, dance routines with the live drummer. Right. But she continued on for many years, appearing.
Line of blue jeans.
Yes.
Very full life.
Yes, absolutely. But just that moment of that fear and all those feelings, I thought, okay, never mind that fantasy.
Sure. Okay.
Maybe finishing the show, backstage laughing, chatting, and taking off my makeup. Yeah. Drop dead then.
Sure.
Backstage.
Yeah.
Which is, maybe my second favorite place to be.
Yeah.
I love. Yeah. Sometimes, some nights, and more. But whatever, as much.
Right.
As much. Often getting ready for the party is as much fun as the party itself. So dressing rooms are just a sacred space to me, hallowed ground, some of the most intimate conversations, heartfelt, soul-bearing that I've ever had in my life have been like while I'm staring at my own mascara application while chatting with the stripper next to me.
I always think of the dressing room as kind of being my personal utopia because it is just, it's first of all, it's like everyone's guard can be down, and you're doing the most banal tasks while someone is like telling you, or you are telling someone like something traumatic or life-changing, and then someone's like pissing right next to you. There's a
slipper room. Hello.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's my adjustment now.
Okay.
I feel fine with that. I feel like people who are backstage with, I know that's still rough, but like you don't want to be alone, and you'd like to be surrounded with people you love who love you. So that seems like a wonderful and a place you'd want to be. Mm-hmm. So I feel like I would be okay with that.
I think that's a great adjustment.
And castmates, they can handle it.
Yeah.
I can't answer for a whole audience, so I don't want to put that on them.
And I mean, you have an act where you get fucked back to life, right? So, or am I interpreting that right? Or is it
Tigger Mortis? No, I'm. There was one version of it where I briefly come back to life. It was a nod to John Carpenter's Halloween. But no, the original setup is I'm a corpse.
Oh, okay. All right.
I'm a corpse. I get violated in all kinds of ways. Yeah. The goal is to make, people in the audience say, God, I wish I was dead. But nope. That was my Halloween act where I was just tired. I had my devil act, and then it got to be a big thing, and you just saw all the devils and the witches and the kitty cats and the zombies and the zombies and the zombies. And I was like, okay, let's go back to basics. Before it was any of these things, death. Let me just be a corpse. And no coming back to life. Just, I'm a corpse.
Okay. But the performers have had, because you bring in other performers, right? So
two other, they're, because every burlesque act is a transformation. Since I stay a corpse, they're the ones transforming. Oh. So they go from mourners to, as they try to animate the body of Tigger, who just tragically died backstage. Then they start, he would take his clothes off now. And then as the clothes come off, they're like, you know what I always wanted to do? And then it just gets raunchier and more fucked up and wrong. And they're completely 3 sheets to the wind and liberated and twisted. Anyway, that's that.
All right. So people have had practice, though.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And I've died in many, many acts. Yeah. I mean, it is thrilling to die on stage. In plays, in burlesque, all of it. Yes. I often have acts where I die because, why not? Why not? It's a performance we're all going to give.
Right. The true final reveal.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a dream role then that you...
So many. A big one that I kept returning to, I've done Macbeth several times. And the first time I was Malcolm. The next time, some 12 years later, I was again offered the role of Malcolm. And I was like, yeah, I've done that. Can I look at this first witch? And I hadn't seen a man being a witch before. And again, I love being in a woman's world and changing the script and on expectations. So that was really fun. But I always knew at the end of the line, I wanted to be Lady Macbeth. So I finally got to do that with Nasty Canasta for the stripper, where she was Macbeth. So I'm not taking roles away from women. I want all of them up for grabs.
Right.
So everyone just gets to play whatever. Yes. Whatever speaks to them, do it. Why get caught up in things like height and body type and race and gender and all that? So that was really thrilling, and I would be happy to do more of that. I would gladly return to Lady Macbeth. I have, a couple Lady Macbeth acts. I would gladly return to that. I always fantasized about doing King Lear and playing both Edgar and Edmund with some great person where we would just flip a coin or whatever. We'd find a random way to just flip it from one night to the next. There's tons. I would love to dive into Noel Coward plays. I've directed back in college some Noel Coward, but I've never had the chance to act it. I got to do a staged reading of The Importance of Being Earnest and played Lady Bracknell, but I did not get to wear the costumes. And I would love to return to Lady Bracknell in a full production. Joe Orton. I love those dark farces. Yeah.
I would love to see you in all those roles, especially Lady Bracknell. That would...
Yeah, that was fun.
So on a slightly serious note, we just lost Bic Carrol, unfortunately. No? Did I? Oh, okay.
We are in the process of saying goodbye to Bic Carrol. Maybe by the time this airs, probably
Perhaps.
we will have said goodbye. So odds are excellent that he has read both of our messages.
Oh, good.
He is not in a good place to be responding to everyone,
of course.
but I've been reassured that he's getting. I always used to communicate with him on Facebook Messenger, and I sent a whole long thing, and it's nice for a change instead of a tragic post about another legend or people our age and younger than me who we've just lost. It's nice to get like that window of time.
Yes.
They are going. He cannot talk, but he's reading the messages. Send your love, send your flowers, send your cards, send your messages. He's there, he's taking them in. And Brief Sweat assured me, he's kind of been going in and out, but like still full of so much joy and like concocting shows he wants to create. And it's like, yeah, nice. I could wish for as well. Hopefully maybe I'll be backstage concocting a show I want to do as I go.
I will be talking about Bic Carrol later on the pod. But for those of you who don't know, he is he actually called himself in one interview the Grandfather of Boylesque, I think as a nod to you as well.
I have mistakenly been, I know, but I've been like little slip of the tongue because Godfather of Neo-Boylesque, I often say. Yeah. And I have, in fact, at Burlesque Hall of Fame, been introduced as the Grandfather of Boylesque. And it's like, and here I come. I'm not quite that old yet, but thanks.
Right, yeah. Bic is an incredible dancer, choreographer, costumer, show producer in burlesque since the 1950s. On that note, though, so we have unfortunately lost many legends. Do you believe in heaven or hell? No. How's that pivot? Okay.
There's plenty of heaven and hell right here, right now.
Oh, yeah.
All around us. So, you try to, fight against the hell and make more heaven while you're here alive for everyone around you. And no guarantees.
Yeah.
That's all.
Amen.
When we're dead, no guarantees. How do I know? I don't know, but no, I don't believe.
Well, say you passed on somewhere and you got the chance to be greeted by one of our mini legends. Who would you like it to be? And
my God.
And what would they say?
I can't.
Talk about the tough questions.
It is too Sophie's choice for me to pick one legend. I can tell you that Bic Carrol is the only Boylesque forefather I ever really got to know. I used to chat with Tony Midnight on the phone.
Oh, yeah.
And he would sneak in and watch his old pals on Legends Night.
Okay.
And I knew, and I would meet him and say hello, but we didn't really get to hang out.
Sure.
And Bic was this friend who was with him. And I would say hi, but he didn't really, he was just there for Tony and his friends.
Uh-huh.
It was when Tony died that Bic started talking to me. And then we started having a long phone conversations. And I was able to talk him into coming on stage, which I'd said, would you? And he's like, no. And both of them were like, no. Oh. And I kept wanting some representation. I mean, like I said, I thought I was making something up and I learned I was wrong. And once I learned, I have a history. I have forebears. I have family. What? That's huge. I wanted to bring it. I wanted it represented. I wanted people to know, yes, there were people before me and here they are. And Tony never did. But out of talking about his love for Tony, I persuaded Bic to come on stage to talk about Tony. And he agreed to that. Then there was a snafu with the door staff at the plaza, and he never got in. And by that night, I happened to be performing on Legends Night. The one night I did that, I was backstage in costume. My phone wasn't with me. I didn't know. Anyway, but the seed was sown.
Yes.
And the next year, he was in the Walk of Fame. So the only representation of a Boylesque legend ever on that stage. That's huge. And a forefather that I really got to hang out with and hear hair curling stories and everything. He's major. Going back before that, Satan's Angel is the first legend I saw where I was with Dirty and Julie, of course, because they're my favorites. And I was like, you guys, wouldn't that be me? If I was a legend, wouldn't I, don't you think, do I remind you of Satan's Angel, don't I? Just a little bit, huh? So I fell madly in love. I was completely under Angel's spell. Yeah. I just laughed so hard, so much with her. Marinka is like the dearest. After my mother died, Marinka called. And we had a whole long chat. And lots of people send beautiful messages, but she picked up the phone and called me, and I just happened to be at the airport coming home from the funeral. And we just had a long talk about family and love and losing people. Oh God, it's endless. All of them. April March was my first assigned legend. I've stayed at her house. We've spent so many years together, having such a great time. Judith Stein is like one of my favorite travel buddies. Yeah. We have torn some shit up and laughed ourselves silly in many cities now. Gotten lost. I wandered San Antonio with her, where she got up on the bar at Coyote Ugly and started stripping, and these guys came over to me and they're like, is that your woman? And ordinarily, of course, I am out. But in that moment, I was like, I'm going to go for the better story. Yeah, she is. She's fucking hot. And they're like, yeah. It was just beautiful. I've never been so happy to pass.
Right, yeah. That's, oh my God.
Anyway, I want to be with them all. Yeah. I just want to be there at the party. Mm-hmm. I would say at the table, but we're not sitting down.
No, we're running around.
Yeah, maybe on the table. Maybe the party's dancing on the table together. Yeah. But yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, well, fair enough. Here we go. All right, I have two last questions for you. Okay, so one, you've seen Showgirls the film.
I have.
Okay. Are you a Nomi or a Crystal, or are you a Hope?
I read this and I thought, oh shit, I have to remember to look this up.
No, I mean, honestly, I've only seen the film a couple of times, but it did make an indelible impression. Nomi Malone is okay. Crystal Connors, Hope in the first film is one of the. Yeah, she's one of the first dancers who goes completely nude, and she has this bob blonde haircut, and everyone's really mean to her, and she's kind of played off as like the dumb stripper.
Right.
I don't know if she bought the rights to the film, but she did something, and she made the second film, Pennies from Heaven, and then she made the third film. I mean, these are like, they span hours. There's all kinds of like editing snafus, but there's something about Hope where I feel like, you can make fun of her, but the girl's making it happen. And she's doing it on her own. So.
I mean, I think you're handing me the answer, and I will gladly take it. Hope. She's nude. She's a survivor. People laugh at her, and she's cool with it. Hope.
Exactly. You know what? Yeah. I think so, too.
Yeah.
Hope embraced it all.
Yeah.
And she has great tits. So,
Awesome.
Fantastic. How about this? So, everyone has their opinion about what it is to do justice to burlesque, right? Or how to best represent it. And I remember when I first started performing, you talked about the importance of not necessarily going full nude, but going down to the G-string, which for me was fine because I was like, oh, I get naked all the time with the cock, so this is great.
Exactly, yes. It helps when you come from slutty backgrounds.
Yeah, exactly, yes. A baseline of sluttery. What is the best way, the most authentic way, especially for boylesque performers, to demonstrate solidarity with female burlesque performers?
I think it is, I feel so strongly, and always have, that we need to be opening doors for the audience, for performers. That is the most important thing I can do in my life as a person, is to open doors. And we should be doing that with our art and everything like that. So everyone's welcome. But I knew for a fact going into this, this is a woman's art form and a woman's world. And I was grateful to get out of the patriarchy for a moment and enter into a matriarchy. Yeah. And I respect and honor that I am a super lucky, happy, naked guest at this female-run, created party. Yeah. So, like, I respect that always, always, always. I think it is important, if you want to honor burlesque, bring yourself. You know, learn the history and all that. You don't have to do the history. If that speaks to you, that's great. But I don't want to see... I'm not such a fan of direct impersonation.
Sure.
Not my thing. Just not my thing. I want to see you. Right. I want to see your naked soul, your humor, your ideas, your whatever, your buffoonery, and your ass. Yeah. I can go see other people elsewhere. Sure. I don't want to see your best impersonation of your hero.
You don't want to see my Dita Von Teese martini number?
Only if it is 90% Chris Harder to 10% Dita Von Teese.
That's no shade to Dita Von Teese.
No! But I've seen Dita. Exactly. Why do I need to see someone impersonate Dita? Right. She's alive. She's there. Come on. So there's that. And in terms of boys and what I was saying to you, and I've said to many, 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 many men about getting naked, it's like, it is essential that you work every bit as hard as the women around you, that you rehearse as hard, that you do your best to, if you don't have that dance background, what do you have? What skills are you bringing? Yeah. You work on those. Mm-hmm. You work your ass off on that. You work hard beforehand and drop all the work and then go play on stage because no one's there to see you work. Right. There's a reason in theater why they call them plays. Play, celebrate. But beforehand, you work so hard that you can play. Yes. That you can stop thinking and just be. Mm-hmm. But while you're doing that, you also have to get every bit as naked. Mm-hmm. There are always women who are, stripping down to like little teeny sequin pasties if they have to wear them, and a landing strip of rhinestones on their cooch. And then there's a man who wants to stop in briefs or, God help me, boxer shorts. Fuck you. You are not only a coward, you're a sexist. Like, that is resting on male privilege. Like, oh, you don't want to see that. If no one wants to see that, why are you on stage? Right. Get the fuck off the stage. Mm-hmm. You don't have a right to be here. You are investing every bit as much and getting every bit as vulnerable, every bit as naked, every bit as committed as your sisters, or you don't belong.
Agreed. Anything else you want to share with us before we close off here?
Boy, oh boy, oh boy. I feel like we've talked so much. I think there is a fascinating conversation going on about the awards.
Yes.
And it's something I've struggled with. Mm-hmm. I don't have an easy answer, which is why it's all the more fascinating. I have always maintained that it is hilarious and stupid that we give Academy Awards to Best Actor and Actress. Yes. It's acting! Right. What the hell does it have to do with your genitals? And why are their genitals any of your business?
Right.
What?
You want to tell our listeners at home because this is actually...
This does lead to many things. Now, it has gone on, I believe, with the Obies from the beginning. They have never gender segregated. There are many awards that are, I think, Drama Desk have stopped. And there's some other awards that are just now, like New York Theater Awards, that are doing away with gender-specified categories. Okay. There are many, with the current Tony nominees... they've gone to Alex Newell and Chuck and like, how would you like to identify? Right. And I said, male. I'll do male. As has happened, Rosewood competed in the first 2 years that there was Boylesque and applied for Miss Exotic World, Mr. Exotic World. They keep calling it Best Boylesque. It's not that hard, people. Mr. Exotic World. Anyway, I ran that by Dixie and Luke and Laura, so don't cross me on that.
Heard it on the record.
Anyway, and, Rose never really felt like Boylesque, but basically felt like, I just want a spot on the stage. Call it whatever you want, whatever. Just give me a spot on the stage. So people have had to compromise for a long time, and it is wrong. It's an artificial construct. It's supporting this myth of a binary that doesn't exist. We all, so many of us, get to like run freely back and forth on the pendulum and play around with it. There are other people who live somewhere on the pendulum, and everyone like trans, non-binary deserves to feel every bit as welcome
100%
as we have. And I think it's important. It was work to get various organizations to welcome Boylesque. That still kind of blows people's minds.
Yeah.
That what? Boys do this? You get up there like a girl?
Especially outside of cities like New York or larger areas, definitely. Yes.
So, that's still opening doors and blowing minds. So clearly still valid. But I feel like we've done that enough that there has long been a conversation at Burlesque Hall of Fame, formerly Miss Exotic World, that we need to open it up more. And how do we do that? Sure. And so this is the first year that there is Exotic World to be filled in as the winner sees fit. Mr., Ms., Mix, Miss, whatever, or Best Undressed. And there was a bit of a survey going around, and I just had a lot to try to put out there about it. Yes, we need to do away with those. But I also had a concern. I never want to lose that history, that female history. The first year that a male wins Best Undressed and Exotic World is going to be crazy and amazing and thrilling, but also, oh shit. Wait a minute. There's not any woman in the top title? What? Like, that's going to make people have some feelings. Or anyone presenting female, or whatever. However, all man, woman is all complicated and misleading terms. And I also think it's interesting because often when female presenting people are doing burlesque, they're thinking of celebrating femininity. And often when myself and other boylesque performers are doing it, we're often thinking of burlesquing masculinity, but it is baked into the word burlesque. It is to parody, to make fun of. And I think current events remind us that toxic males are everywhere and masculinity desperately needs burlesquing. And I don't want to ever lose that. So I would like the fullest scope of representation, honor the past, make room for the future, and make everybody welcome. I feel like, let's try this. Let's try this. I love it. And I know there's problems, and I foresee some hurt feelings and heartaches ahead, but it's better than just sitting with the status quo and pretending there's a binary.
Yeah, and I feel like this is going to come up in a lot of interviews on the pod. Because I also, everything that you just said in terms of making sure that everybody feels welcome, that also everybody gets the chance to identify what it is that they're competing for, or what it is that they want. I think that there's something about pageants in general that is inherently campy, which I think sometimes people at Burlesque Hall of Fame, we forget because it is an honor to be accepted and it's an honor to perform, but it also, we're in a pageant. So there's a little bit of whimsy that I think could be incorporated in general into that.
And everyone involved should always keep a sense of humor.
Yes. As someone, and I can say it as myself, who has not always had a sense of humor as well. So, just call my own self out. I also think that there's something special about honoring the history of Miss Exotic World and honoring the history of Mr. Exotic World and those titles and the people who brought them in, the people who carried the traditions on. And I also think, I don't know, I think it's possible to hold it all too. And we just have to kind of see
exactly
what happens.
Let's try some things. Yeah. Let's try to be more inclusive and see, as we hit bumps in the road, see what we can do to make it better. But thank God they're trying.
Yeah.
You know?
And also, fuck them in the heart, everybody that's going to be competing this weekend.
All of the genders represented. I'm super excited for that. I think it's thrilling to see a beautiful array all competing.
Yeah.
If arts have to compete at all, performing for me, as far as I'm concerned, they're all performing.
Yeah.
So like I win because I get to see it all.
Yeah. You're all winners. It is true. I mean, I always, as myself, as a competitor, I hate being told, like, you're a winner for being here. But, I mean, as someone in the audience, I absolutely believe that. And this podcast is actually going to come out the first night of Burlesque Hall of Fame. So here's wishing all of you a fantastic weekend, a beautiful show, and you know, love up those legends. And make sure you spend some time and say hi.
Everything Chris said, fuck him in the heart. I am so thrilled and excited. I'm going to be there cheering and screaming and just loving it. Although if I'm assisting the legend judge again, I will be doing it silently so as not to influence anything. But believe me, my eyes will be exploding with love and joy. Yes. Yeah. And if you're not loving legends, go away.
Take those boxer briefs and get the fuck out.
They made us possible. Love your family.
Yes. All right, everyone. On that note, this has been the first episode of Showboys. Tigger, thank you so much for being on here.
Thank you.
It's truly, I mean, you're a friend and an inspiration, and I'm so glad that you're kicking off the podcast. I wouldn't want it any other way.
I'm delighted and tickled and honored. Thank you, Chris.
All right. Stay tuned, and we'll see you next episode, everyone. Take care. Thank you for listening to Showboys. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you didn't like it,
you are a whore, darling.